How we doing? I am checking in with you, Don McLaughlin from the Growth Reset, checking in with you from my office in downtown Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and want to dive into a subject that I've been meaning to cover for a while, and that is the subject of depression and anxiety for CEOs, something that I struggled with for a very long time. And I just want to talk about what my experience was like and the things that I learned through the course of a couple of different periods of really severe anxiety and at times dark depression. And today is a late fall day, dreary, cold, and it brings me back to moments in this very office years ago when I had real dark moments. And it was a combination of anxiety, almost borderline panic attacks, and then depression, and sort of this this spectrum. And so I just want to talk about what allowed me to move out of that dark place. And hope that it serves you. And I'll just say, right at the outset that this is something that I think founders, CEOs, driven people don't want to talk about too much. I certainly didn't, and yet it was the most important thing for me to address when it was happening. And so I recognize that this may be uncomfortable even to think about or hear about, particularly if maybe you're going through some of this, and I totally get that. For me, I resisted help for so long, and yet the consequences were so significant because I was serving as CEO of a company that I founded. Dozens of employees, clients relying on us, my family, and you're in that founder CEO role or even a senior leadership role. In some respects, you're in the cockpit of an organization, and it's I think when anxiety and depression can take us out of showing up at our best and being fully there. It's akin to the pilot or pilots leaving the cockpit in an aircraft that's in flight. It's very scary, and it was for me for sure, because I knew that my team and the business and my family needed me, but there were many days when I just felt like I couldn't show up. I was so wrapped around the axle, and I know that's a pretty loose way to describe something that is very serious. And that's where I want to start, with the first thing that made such a huge difference for me, and that is I got professional help. And again, I resisted for so long, but had the support of friends and family and my spouse at the time, who encouraged me to go get professional help, and I did so. As part of that, I was diagnosed as clinically depressed and very high anxiety, and I was prescribed antidepressants in the form of Zoloft, and that provided immediate relief for sure. I could just function on a day-to-day basis, rather than get caught in these downward spirals that would take me out for hours and sometimes days at a time, when I would just, in this very office, sort of pace around and be almost paralyzed in certain respects. And so getting professional help, and for me, again, meds did help, and I thought that would be a short-term solution, and it was in the short term, but then it turned into a longer-term sort of Band-Aid that had some side effects that I really didn't like. And so I'm going to jump into the two things that made the biggest difference for me long-term, and continue to in many respects. And that is number two, I got aligned with myself. And what I mean by this is that I finally got to a point where I realized there wasn't anything wrong with me. um, in this sense, that there were just conditions in my life that contributed to this, gripping anxiety and deep depression. And of course, I can only see that in retrospect, but I wish I could tell myself back then to stop making myself so wrong, and instead just recognize that this is the result of a number of conditions. And I'm not a medical doctor. Don't play one on the internet. I'm just sharing my own experience. And the truth of the matter is, there's a whole myriad of different conditions that contribute to high anxiety and depression. And at least in my experience and what I've learned, those could be biochemical. They could be a combination of physiological and situational. And I believe mine was a combination of those things, heavily situational. And this is the other element of I got aligned with myself, which is that I was wronging myself in this way. I was ignoring aspects of my inner voice, and what a well-known author, Parker Palmer, talks about his experiences of depression, getting crosswise with my true self. And that was absolutely the case around objectives and goals around the business, and what my vision was long term, and how I was at odds with myself in a very deep way. And so as I got aligned with myself, that really opened the door for, in many respects, the depression to start to lift. But again, I think I resisted so long that I was in this dark place, and I beat myself up for it, when in retrospect I realized it just is something that was unavoidable, and I just had to sort of be in it, as hard as that is, because as Parker describes, and others do as well, depression is this experience, at least it was for me, where it's not an easy fix. It's not something we can just cheer ourselves up and get through. And that in certain respects, as Parker describes it, the darkness, takes over us and becomes us in certain respects. But getting aligned with myself really, again, opened the door. The third and final thing is that I got relief. And what I mean specifically is, this is more of a long-term strategy, is number one, I took sleep much more seriously. And that's easier said than done. I realize that, but some of the other things I talk about will explain how I started to get much better sleep. One is that I just really started to limit significantly my reliance on alcohol to relax. And again, easier said than done. I had to find some different tools and strategies to do so. And one of those is that I started to exercise outdoors more regularly. And you may be listening to that and thinking, "Oh my God, you've got to be kidding me!" I'm not saying that outdoor exercise is the panacea for depression or intense anxiety. Absolutely not. And I'm saying that in my experience, frequent outdoor exercise in the form of even walking, and in my case running, and then bike riding, just seem to do a job of elevating my mood, and also then contributing to better sleep. So that's one of the key things for me in terms of getting relief, and it remains for me a mainstay, regular outdoor exercise. And also, it doesn't take too many Google searches to show that running in particular in many countries is a prescribed form of antidepressant therapy. And so there is science out there demonstrating the benefit of exercise, and certainly being outdoors in nature and wilderness. And then the fourth and final thing for me, supplementation. I started to look at ways to relax, that I could limit the amount of alcohol. And anybody that knows me, or you hear my message and my work around Pure Power Botanicals, I had this experience with hemp extract and a variety of other powerful plant extracts that allowed me to sleep much more deeply, I had less anxiety, and also long term helped me wean off of the antidepressants that I was on, and just all of a sudden, enhance my energy and also my recovery in a way that was necessary for the intense demands of life as a founder and CEO of a rapid growth company. And those three, just to recap, I got professional help, and that involved medication short term, that I ultimately wanted to get off of long term, and successfully did so through some other strategies. I got aligned with myself, and then the third is I got some relief in the way of just day-to-day lifestyle choices that helped. And again, none of this is a panacea, because again, anxiety and depression are multifaceted, multidimensional, and they're not susceptible to easy, quick fixes. But this is my experience over years, and I know it's a very challenging time when you're in it, and yet I hope that my experience helps you in some way, shape, or form, because as a founder, as a CEO, as a leader inside an organization, we have great responsibility, and it's also a lot of pressure. So I think anxiety and depression is more common than we like to admit. I know, as I said, I didn't want to, and yet we have this great responsibility and opportunity to elevate ourselves as leaders, even in the midst of these very, very challenging times, because these dark times that I experienced, they actually led to me becoming stronger, as cliche as that may sound. But there was absolutely gold in the midst of great darkness. So anyway, hope those things help, and we'll talk again soon.